House of EdTech, episode number 33.
I'm Miles, and you're listening to the House of EdTech with my daddy, Chris Nitty.
This episode of House of EdTech is brought to you by todaysmeet.com. For more information about adding back-channeling to your classroom, head over to todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nesi, and the House of EdTech podcast explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and sharing information you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators like you and have them share their stories. The purpose being, whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. Hey, welcome back inside the House of EdTech. Happy April, happy spring. I am so glad that you have decided to join me here in this episode of the podcast. If this is your first episode, welcome aboard. You've only got 32 episodes to catch up on, as again, this is episode number 33. Coming up in this episode, I have my usual awesome segments, the EdTech Thought, my EdTech Recommendation, and of course, no episode is complete unless I have a House of EdTech VIP. I'm really excited to share my conversation with Miss Jennifer Cronk, who is the Director of Professional Learning at Warwick Valley Central School District in upstate New York in the Putnam Valley area. Before I get to my conversation with Jennifer, I have a couple of things to share with you. First up, I have some audio feedback from AJ Bianco, former House of EdTech VIP, and definitely soon to be future guest of the podcast. AJ sent in some audio to share his digital learning day experiences with his 6th grade classroom. So let me cue that up and take it away, AJ.
Hello, Mr. Nessie. What is going on? This is AJ Bianco. Just want to drop a little feedback about what my class did for Digital Learning Day on Friday, March 13th. We teamed up with Mr. Ackley, Jared Ackley from Texas, and my 6th grade student in New Jersey took part in a mystery Google Hangout with his students in Austin, Texas. And we were going back and forth asking questions through Google Hangouts. Unfortunately, the video was not available. But it was so great to watch my students get excited about asking questions and getting responses from somebody that's over the computer. We have planned now, since we did this mystery Google Hangout, that we are going to try to do a face-to-face meetup through Google Hangouts for real after their spring break. But it was fantastic watching students interact, get excited. I know his students were excited. So I'm looking forward to adding some more mystery Google Hangouts or mystery Skype in my classroom in the future. And Digital Learning Day was absolutely a success with my 6th grade students. Thank you so much for sending that in.
I think that's a fantastic Digital Learning Day story, and it sounds like your students really got a lot out of it, as did, the other students that you got to mystery Skype with. Definitely, please keep in touch and let me know what future mystery Skypes you do and how that goes. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And if there's a EdTech story that you want to share, feel free to send that in. There are a number of ways that you can do that. So stick around to the end of the episode where I tell you all the awesome ways and easy ways that you can get in touch with me and submit your EdTech related stories or education stories here to the podcast. I'd also like to give a shout out to a relatively new House of EdTech listener, Janet DeCenzo, who is a North Jersey teacher. She sent in some really awesome feedback via Twitter. Janet's Twitter username is JanTechNJ. That's JanTechNJ. And she also blogs at t4techteach.blogspot.com. And I will link to both of those in the show notes for this episode. Thank you, Janet, for your awesome feedback. I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast to and from work. That's a lot of time that you're committing to listening to me and the people that I have on here. So I do appreciate it. Keep the awesome feedback coming. You can do what Janet did and hit me up on Twitter. use the hashtag House of EdTech. Again, just hang around till the end of the episode or check out the website over on chrisnessy.com, and you can see how you can get in touch with me and submit your thoughts about the program. And speaking of supporting the program, a couple of things that I want to throw out to you guys, some ways that you can show your support for the podcast. First and foremost, the best thing that you can do to help the House of EdTech is to head over to iTunes and rate and review the podcast. Ratings and reviews are, greater than gold for podcasters like myself. Take some time here early in the spring to show your appreciation for the House of EdTech and any podcast that you listen to, and let the host of your favorite podcast know how they're doing and what you like about their shows. If you do want to contribute monetarily to the program, there are two ways you can do that. One that you've heard of, and that is by becoming a patron through Patreon. And you can do that through patreon.com/houseofedtech. And what Patreon allows you to do is similar to the Artisan Days, and here's me putting on my my history hat. You can, by episode or by month, you can say, I want to pledge, $1, $2, whatever. I'm cool with whatever you feel is worthy to donate. For example, Jeff Herb over at Instructional Tech Talk, he is a patron of the show, and he finds value in what I do here. He's showing his appreciation by, being a patron. The newest way I found, if you do want to contribute money to the show, and money goes a long way to pay for things like hosting and software and different things that I'd like to do with the podcast that I just can't do myself. This new way that you can do that is through a website called cash.me. And if you go to cash.me/$House of EdTech, and the reason it's a $sign is because they don't use hashtags. Their whole thing is that they call it a cash tag. And if you go over to cash.me/$House of EdTech, you can basically put in an amount, put in your debit or credit card, and it's secure through the Square system. And you can do a one-time, donation that I can use to, again, offset things like hosting and some website development that I'm looking forward to doing here in the spring and over the summer for the show. So those are three ways that you can show support for the podcast. Above all, ratings and reviews are the best thing that you can do. Obviously, I'm not in this for the money, but any monetary donation can go a long way to help out with what I'm doing. That's enough about that. I have some more announcements coming up at the end of the episode. Let's get right into my conversation with Jen Cronk. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce this episode's featured guest, Ms. Jennifer Cronk. She's the Director of Professional Learning for the Warwick Valley Central School District in New York State. She's a 19-year veteran teacher, and she's an innovative educator and leader with diverse experience in designing technology curricula, providing and coordinating professional development as well. Ms. Cronk is a regular presenter at Google Summits, as well as many tech expos and other technology events. She's one of the key organizers of the recent Hudson Valley Google Summit, and she also offers classes to parents, which help to bridge the gap into digital parenting. Let's meet this fantastic blogger and digital native and experienced person. Let's welcome to the House of EdTech, Ms. Jennifer Cronk.
Thank you very much.
Or, as I learned briefly before we hit record, Jen Cronk.
There you go. Jen
One
Cronk.
word. Is that also a hashtag?
Hashtag Jen Cronk. It just might be. I might have to coin that.
It is now. When I promote this episode, it will be hashtag Jen Cronk.
That's awesome. I love it. Thanks.
We've learned a little bit about you just here in a brief intro. I like to get right in, so let's get dirty. Talk to me about Google Apps in special education, because that's one of the main reasons that I was attracted to having you come onto the program.
Well, I think Google Apps in special education can really be transformational for the special ed student. And I'm speaking to you as a learning disabled adult. I didn't learn to read till I was in third grade. So for me, when I started to really get involved in instructional technology, I all of a sudden had a wealth of tools at my disposal that were allowing me to modify my workflow and my processes to align with how I learn and how I take in information. Probably some of the most profound tools in Google Apps for education, besides Google Drive, which right there is a ticket to freedom. We're no longer anchored to any one place. I have plenty of students in the past who use their phones in class or use their phones on the bus on the way to sporting events to work on their research papers. It was perfectly fine in my class for you to have your phone as long as it was out on the table and obvious. And it would be very commonplace to see kids Google something I said. If they didn't know a term that I was discussing, they had a research tool right at their disposal. Also, something else that was really important that I really encouraged my kids, special ed or not, was to have an Evernote account, because Evernote is so powerful. I had students that had modifications that needed to have notes for class, or that had a really hard time with organization. And those kids you would give as part of their requirements for their IEPs or their 504s, you would hand them a sheet of notes that you know they don't have the organizational skills to keep. So it's almost a moot point.
It defeats the purpose.
It really does. And I was one of those kids too. I did not have the organizational skills to know how to deal with this stuff. I didn't understand file structures or how to keep these things in such a way that I would be easily able to access them. So I started to show my students, have the Evernote and that app, take pictures of the Blackboard. I'll send you attachments of any of the handouts. You can record my lecture, videotape me if you want to, especially for some of my kids. If it was review, I would tell them, if you want to record me, start now. And they could have an audio file. They could have any of the digital copies that I had, plus pictures of the Blackboard, all in one concise note specific to that day that they could always go back and have access to, which, was something that was not available to me when I was a student.
Now, would you consider yourself to be like an Evernote junkie? Like you use it professionally? Are you all involved in it personally as well too?
Kind of like to diversify. I use Evernote professionally quite a bit. So I spent some time in Digo a couple years, and I don't know when the shift happened, but I'm pretty much exclusively in Evernote. And I think if I wound up back in the classroom, I would Digo it again. But all of my bookmarks, even though I save a lot of stuff in Chrome, it's always in Evernote. That's just where I tend to send things. As far as exclusivity, I pretty much equally use Pinterest too. Much more probably for personal, DIY projects, the kind of projects that I love to look at and think that sometime I'll actually do them, but never really do them.
Oh, I am by no means a plumber or an electrician or an interior designer, but thank God for Pinterest.
Exactly. Yeah, so I use a few different sites or organizational tools. Pinterest happens to be one of them. Evernote's the other, but Evernote was the one that I thought was, and especially at the time when I was demonstrating this to my class, was 2011 and 2012. So, at that time, I don't believe Pinterest was on the horizon at that point.
I've spoken to a number of people who are in similar positions to yourself, and they've all said the same thing, so I will pose the question to you. Do you have the opportunity in your day-to-day activities to spend time in classrooms, or do you meet mostly with teachers as groups, or do you get to, go back into the trenches?
I'm really fortunate. I think I get all the above. I get to work directly with teachers. Today, I was teaching first graders how to use their Android tablets and how they were going to use Wixie. I'm really like a shared resource. So I work with 4 technology facilitators, and there's a technology facilitator for each one of the buildings in our district. I help them. I help coordinate them. But I'm also a resource for all the buildings. So the buildings, I send out a sign-up sheet. Well, actually, I send out a calendar. I use youcanbook.me. I'll pick a day, and I'll check with the principal and say, okay, to this elementary school, I'm going to be in your building on Wednesday. Sign me out if you want some on-demand professional development. And teachers will sign me out for on-demand PD. Some teachers will sign me out to do push-in technology work with their students. And we just rolled out Android tablets this year. So there's been a great need for additional support, helping the kindergartners and the first graders transition into that.
You are the first guest who almost put themselves on the same level as a library book, where they check you out and you have made yourself a commodity.
Yes, and that's actually how I look at it, is that, sign me out. I'm a resource. And that's what makes me the happiest, really, is when I'm working with teachers. The days that I spend most of my time in the buildings working with teachers are the days that I drive home with a huge smile on my face.
And you really can't ask for more than that. But that's not where it stops for you, because not only do you make the teachers in your district happy, you also hit the conference and presentation circuit as well.
I try to, yes. I love conferences.
Share a little bit about what you like to do at conferences in terms of what you hope to learn at different conferences, and also as a presenter, what are some of your favorite topics to share?
Okay, so I have to preface this with I have two other compadres, and I consider them the other 2/3 of my brain, and that's Jesse Lubinsky, which is at J Lubinsky on Twitter, and Sabrina Rich, and I think she's at SRTech1 on Twitter. They're both directors of technology. Jesse is in Irvington, and Sabrina is in Ardsley. And the three of us work really, really well together. We just gelled. We all met at the technology directors meeting, and I present quite frequently with them.
Hold on, wait a second. I think my mind was just blown because something just clicked for me.
What?
I think I was the one who got the three of you on Voxer.
You might have been, yes.
At some point last year.
I think you did.
You just said Jesse's name, and I'm like, it just clicked. And we shared, and you guys were like, what's this Voxer thing? And I somehow connected on Twitter, and...
Yeah, you did. Yep, you got us on Voxer, which we do occasionally use. We forget to use it sometimes. We usually text each other quite a bit, but I do like Voxer. Voxer is, it seems like a very cool resource that I need to exploit a little bit more and really get into and see what more I can do with it. But yes.
There's a lot of people exploiting it.
Yes. You got to tell me about how to hook me up with some of these great chats so I can get in there.
Absolutely. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So anyway, so Jesse, Sabrina, and I were all from Westchester County, New York. We have this great tech expo that's hosted by our local regional center, BOCES, model schools. And we all started also meeting each other, technology directors meetings, and we all began to present at this tech expo, and we kind of gelled. So we tend to present a lot on Google things. My most recent Google presentation was Become a Gmail Jedi. I have a sick fascination with my Gmail. I nurture my Gmail like it was a small pet. I really do. And it's funny, I was just working with one of the Googlers who handles the Android things. Everything that has to do with Android and the operating system, we were having some issues. So Google came out to just check out everything. And we were talking about inbox work. And he was like, and how did you do that? And what's that? And I was like, I've got a Googler asking me for my Gmail tips. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But anyway, I love Gmail. I love Google Apps. So obviously we present on a lot on that. We actually got a Pioneer Award for our work with NITech Ed, which NI10 was a director's group. We wanted a teacher's group. So we created a teacher's group, and we used a website with a Google Apps backbone to it. So we have a Google group running that is password protected from the website. We use Google Docs on all of our external links. We house all of our materials there. And so one of our presentations for a year was how you can do archived professional development and have it available 24/7 to your staff. And I've used that model in my current role. I have a professional development website where I use Hangouts, screencasts. I put all of our tutorials, everything obviously in Google Drive. I just link out of that. But I have a nice forward-facing website that I use. About the only thing that we don't present on is Google Sites. Sorry.
Now that site, that's what you're doing over at transparentlyteaching.com?
No, transparentlyteaching.com is actually just my personal blog.
Oh, okay. All right, then we'll get to that.
Yeah. So NITech Ed is all that other stuff.
Okay.
So it's nyteched.org.
And I won't hide it either. I am also not a fan of Google Sites.
It is and I'm speaking as a stepchild, so I'm not meaning to offend anybody. It is the forgotten stepchild of the Google Apps family. Just saying.
I myself, my own site, I built it on Blogger because you can do so much more with it.
Yeah, I'm a Weebly girl looking into Wix, but I have like 15 sites off Weebly right now.
Now, I've played with Wix when it first came out because I saw one of their billion commercials on TV, And it just struck me more as if I owned a bakery, I would do a Wix site. I played with it and I couldn't quite, like, I mean, I have like Mr. Nessie dot, you name it, I've played with it kind of thing. So there's probably like a mrnessie.wix.com out there where, you know, I play with it, but, you know, I'm not a baker. I'm not a construction worker. But that was like 2 or 3 years ago. So I haven't played with it since.
It looks like it has some pretty nice functionality. I'm hoping Weebly does some updates. I mean, I know Weebly inside out and backwards, and I use it so much. I think they need to update some of their templates. It's just beginning to look a tiny bit dated. So I just started actually updating mine because I also looked at my Transparently Teaching recently, and I was like, oh God, you look old.
Now, of all the things that you present on, do you have a favorite presentation? Because you named one that had a Star Wars reference in it. What was it?
Become a Gmail Jedi.
A Gmail Jedi, which I very much appreciate well-named workshops. So kudos and thumbs up on the name. Do you have a favorite workshop that you've done a number of times, and then also what is your favorite thing to present on? So favorite workshop.
That's hard.
This is no cake interview.
Yeah.
This is the House of EdTech, damn it.
Okay, so let me put it to you like this. Something I could do with my eyes closed would be obviously Gmail, just because I live and breathe it. And I actually study it. And I actually changed my methods to it based on the book Digital Literacy by Mark Hurst, who's also on Twitter at Mark Hurst. And I actually tweeted out a picture of my Gmail like a Jedi. Someone took a picture and tweeted out and I tagged Mark Hurst. And he was like, the very end of my Gmail presentation is you're a rebel and a traitor. And he immediately was like, what's up with a Star Wars reference? And I was like, oh, that was the end of my Gmail presentation when I was totally giving it up to his book and its techniques and how it changed everything. So Gmail is my easy go-to that I just love. I could do it all day. Actually, I have to say right now, my favorite presentation is not tech. It is actually Teach Like a Champion Techniques, Wait Time, and Cold Calling from Doug Lemov. I have so much fun with that. So that's probably my current favorite. But, you know, once you start working on a presentation and you do it a few times and you get in your groove, you really like it. So I've done that presentation most recently, I would say easily 15 times. And it's been a lot of fun. And it's just been a nice change to see, okay, I know I can present tech, but can I present non-tech? And really have a good time with that. So Gmail for the easy, Doug Lemov's techniques, that's something that I'm continuing to learn and I want to continue to present on, but I still have a lot more to learn. And if you don't follow Doug Lemov at Doug Lemov on Twitter.
Now, two other interesting things that came up in, again, my internet stalking of you. Something called Tobii, Tobii. Talk about Tobii.
Tobii. So Tobii ATI. Tobii is a company, and they also have what is it called a Tobii device. A Tobii device is a device that allows somebody who is usually non-ambulatory, cannot move, and usually cannot communicate orally, access to a computer and manipulating a computer through eye-gazing technology. It's pretty revolutionary stuff. It's pretty awesome. I think many of you saw that there was an ALS commercial on one of the Super Bowls it was showing the Microsoft Surface Pro 2.
Yes.
And using the Tobii, it's called the PCI Go. It's a camera that attaches to the bottom of the Surface Pro 2. And that actually winds up tracking the eye movement and communicating to the tablet what is supposed to be manipulated.
Was that the commercial where the kids were manipulating the pieces under it on the table, or is that something different? That's
something different. Actually, I can find it. Steve Gleason was an NFLer who was diagnosed with the ALS. And so this particular commercial, this commercial focuses on how he's communicating with the world around him using his Surface Pro 2 and the Tobii PCI Go underneath it. So what the Tobii device does basically is it allows those people that suffer from locked-in syndrome to be able to communicate with the world around them. And the Tobii is much more than the actual device. It's very sophisticated software also. So it gives them predictable phrases. They can develop their own predictable phrases. And it really toggles through language very quickly. My first experience with a Tobii was working with a student in Clarkstown who had cerebral palsy. And she was non-ambulatory and nonverbal. And she used a very large old school Tobii to do her communicating for her.
Very fascinating, Jennifer. Very, very cool. I checked out the website. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about it and teach me about it. I have included, or I will include, the link to the YouTube video in the show notes so everyone can check out the video by Mr. Gleason. Speaking of also interesting technology that is related to kids, you mentioned in our pre-interview session about the Philippe phone, or is it Philip phone? I don't know how to say it.
I don't know how to properly pronounce it. I call it the Philip phone.
Okay, so we'll go with that for
we'll go with that for lack of a better term. I recently did a blog post on it too, and I've been doing some work with the Philip phone. So the Philip phone, I'll preface this with, I have been looking for a cell phone that was appropriate for my son for a while. I am a hyper paranoid mom. I apologize in advance to my kids' teachers. Yes, I am that mom. And I try to do my best to keep myself in check, but I can to some degree. So I was looking at cell phones for kids, but they all seem to be lacking in the simple thing that, for a kid who needs help to pull a cell phone out of a pocket, it's not going to happen. So there's Khajiit, which is out there, which is decent. There's Firefly. They all have GPS functionality. These are all blog posts that I've done on my Transparently Teaching blog, which is all dedicated to pretty much technology in my life, and also digital parenting. So
real quick, when you say help, we're not talking pulling up an app. I have a question. You're talking about I'm in danger help.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm talking about I'm in danger help. I'm lost. I'm in danger. Somebody's approaching me. Help. Yeah. Like, parents' worst nightmare kind of deal.
Right.
And so I forget how I came across it. I think I was just doing another one of my obsessive searches online for a cell phone for children. And I've done this search so many times. And I came across the Philip phone. And the Philip, I think the website is myphilip.com. And Philip is spelled Filip. And it's the story. They started with the story that the creator of the Philip phone lost his 3-year-old son in a mall for 30 minutes. And it was the worst 30 minutes of his entire life. And I could imagine that I would be hysterical at that point. And when he found his son, he realized there's got to be a way that he can keep track of him. So he developed the Philip phone that runs off of cell towers as far as location, uses GPS that's based on cell towers and also based on Wi-Fi. My son's Philip phone has, it can call up to 5 numbers only, and only 5 numbers can call it. They all are pre-approved by me. Anybody that has the app that I approve can send my son very brief text messages. I think the character limit is about 30, like super brief. The primary thing that I love as a parent, my son now is riding his bike around the neighborhood. So I make sure the phone is charged up. The key feature about this phone, it's a bracelet. It's a watch. It's a nice, rugged, thick watch.
That was one of the first things that I had noticed. That, we just had the big Apple Watch announcement and, comparisons to, the fictional Dick Tracy communicator watch.
Right.
And when I had seen this, when you shared it with me, I was like, this is that watch.
Yeah.
This is it.
So cool. It really is. So I can open up the My Philip app on my cell phone and see on a map of my neighborhood where my son is or where the watch is. It does by default update every 15 minutes. I set mine to auto update about every minute. So that's huge. I can see where my son is. He, just by pressing a button, he can cycle through his 5 numbers and call me and let me know when he's leaving his friend Tommy's house to go to his friend Nikki's house, because the 3 of them just go in a triangle. It's just like, it's Tommy's house, Nikki's house, my house. Tommy's house, Nikki's house, my house. And they'll do that for an entire Sunday. That's all they do is just rotate. So I can see where they are in the neighborhood. He can call me easily. And one of the things that I really like a lot is there's a panic button. So the panic button, if he holds down the red button for 3 seconds or more, it immediately sends, it puts it into emergency mode. The phone will cycle through and continue to call all 5 numbers until it reaches somebody. And at the same time, it is recording the ambient noise.
That's serious, and that is so valuable.
That's what parents need to know, is that this is something that's really, really, really valuable for us. And also from my parent app, I can immediately choose to put the phone in emergency mode.
So you could signal from anywhere to start recording the noise and... Yes.
So for some reason, I don't know where my son is and I'm freaking out. I can go to my phone, go to my MyPhilip app, and I can turn on the emergency mode. And it will start, immediately cycling, updating where it is on the map continually. It will be recording ambient noise, all of that. Yeah.
Now, since you've got the experience with it, what is some of the cost associated with this technology and this specific device?
You'd be surprised. It's not. I was expecting to be a lot more. You could order you can order a Philip phone online through the AT&T web store if you want to. I actually went into a store just for the heck of it around the holidays to see if they carried it. Most AT&T stores don't carry it. It's the most valuable under-marketed item I have ever seen. How parents are not jumping all over this, I don't know. But they happen to have one, and it was a version 2. And so I said, because there's 2 versions, 1 and 2, and I have the 2. It cost me a little over $100. I got it on sale. They're usually just about, I think, $190 for the phone. I got mine for $100. I pay AT&T monthly $10.
Like another line, I guess.
Yeah, it's another line. And I use Verizon for all my stuff, but AT&T is the only carrier for the Philip phone. So you need to make sure before you even invest in this that you have AT&T coverage in your neighborhood, or even in your state that you have decent AT&T coverage. So, that's really important because otherwise it won't be worth it.
All right. Through the magic of editing, I am now joined by Jen Cronk's son, Jack, who is how old?
7.
All right, so you are 7 years old, and you have this phone called a Philip phone. Mom got this for you. Can you tell me why Mom got it for you?
So my mom know where I was.
So a safety thing.
Yeah.
Do other friends of yours have cell phones that are, I guess, more traditional? Are they bigger, regular phones?
Really, no.
What do your friends think of the Philip phone?
They think it's pretty cool, and once I brought it to school, like I promised one of my friends, because he said there's no such thing.
Now, so seeing is obviously believing. Do you wear it to school, or do you just wear it when you're at home and you're like riding your bike and you're around with your friends?
I'm around my friends and sometimes at school with my friends.
What do your teachers think of it?
Did you tell your teachers about it?
They don't know.
Oh.
Would you be able to have it in school all the time? Could you wear it? Because I know it goes on your wrist, right?
Well, the school has this policy that the kids can bring phones, they can't be seen because he's still in elementary school.
Oh, okay. Now, have you ever had to call your mom with it?
A lot of times.
Does she call you a lot with it?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
There was one time recently, actually, where there was a misunderstanding between us and one of his friends' families, and we were on our way home, and Jack called me, and he was out in front of the garage. Nobody was home. One of his friends had walked him back, and he was actually making his way back. He was going to walk back to his friend's house. But that was exactly the reason why we wanted to have that phone.
So in that case, you were able to, I guess, open the garage door or get him back in the house or know where he was.
Well, we were on our way there, but even just for him to know that we were close by and that we were able to talk to him. I mean, what if he went there and we weren't there, and he didn't know what was going to happen? He's a smart boy. I mean, he was heading back over to his friend's house anyway, but now he has a way of getting back in touch with us.
Jack is not only smart, but he's got a good personality here too, as he's trying to make me laugh. He's having a good time here on the Skype call.
Yeah.
All right, but as I do know, you're in New York, so you're in the same time zone that I am, so it's 9:30. Go to bed.
What?
All right, can you say thank you, Mr. Nessie?
Thank you, Mr. Nessie.
Thank you, Jack. I'm glad you came on the show. So awesome. We have talked about a lot tonight, Jen Cronk, and I'm gonna go with it. Hashtag Jen Cronk, if you haven't picked up on it yet. So what are some of the ways that people can continue to learn from you, connect with you, pick your brain about all the things that we've talked about and more?
I like to blog on transparentlyteaching.com. Obviously, that's my blog. I focus mostly on digital parenting, or also just from my lens as a teacher, parent, technology specialist, how all three of those worlds go together. I publish quite a bit on my YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter.
So people can just, we have permission to get in touch with you.
You do. And now I have to make sure that I put on all my medic tags on my, on all of my websites, Jen Cronk.
Absolutely.
As one word, Jen Cronk.
Keywords are crucial, and SEO is very valuable. Thank you so much for being here on the House of EdTech, and we will definitely talk to you again.
Thanks so much for having me.
And now I'd like to share with you this episode's EdTech Thought, which I have titled, Need a Tweet? Take a Tweet. Today I want to talk to you about asking for help on Twitter. Here's a success story. Recently, I was looking for recommendations about great Chrome apps and extensions for administrators and what principals and superintendents and supervisors find valuable in the Chrome browser to make their jobs easier. I was looking for this information because somebody had asked me about it, and I didn't readily know, since I'm not an administrator, what could be useful right off the top of my head. So I threw the question out to my Twitterverse. Well, not my Twitterverse, it's all of our Twitterverse. But I threw the question out there. That's the point. And within 3 minutes, I was sent a link by somebody who I follow and, who follows me. So we're connected. And they shared a resource from somebody who I did not know who they were, but I checked out the source and it had some great links and videos to a bunch of awesome apps and extensions that definitely administrators would find valuable, and that answered my question. What did I get out of this? First and foremost, I got the answer to the question that I had, and 2, I was able to further connect with somebody who I was connected with, which is sometimes difficult to do on Twitter because we follow and, we're following so many people, and I was able to start to connect with somebody who I didn't know based on the information that they had already put out onto the internet. So between now and the next episode, or really the next time you have a question, try putting it out to your PLN on Twitter. It may not be as fast as getting a response back in 3 minutes. There are times I've put out questions and, it's crickets. But I have not been discouraged, and whenever I have a question, I do put the question out on Twitter. Sometimes I get answers, sometimes I don't, but I know I could put the question out there and maybe it sticks and maybe I will get a response. And I think that's part of the battle. So next time you need a tweet, give a tweet and maybe be a little bit more conscious of people's questions that you see out there and try and give a response or maybe refer them to somebody who you might know and help make the world of Twitter go round. And that's my EdTech Thought. Now it's time for this episode's EdTech recommendation: converting PDFs to Google Docs. I think this is going to be my first recommendation where it's a little bit more of a how-to and not one specific piece of software. So let's give it a shot. While PDFs are a great format for sharing a file and information, they aren't always lending themselves to change very easily. Adobe Acrobat Professional isn't cheap, and not everybody has access to it when it comes to, one, creating PDFs, and two, editing already existing PDFs. But it has now been recently, learned and put out there that you can use Google Docs and the recently updated optical character recognition, or OCR engine. You can now manipulate PDFs in Google Docs much easier. Here's what you need to do. First, sign into Google Drive. Number two, upload, the PDF that you need to manipulate to your Google Drive. Number three, right-click on the uploaded file, and then you want to select Open with Google Docs. By taking these steps, a new converted document is created in your Google Drive, and you can now open the new document and rename, edit, annotate, and share it just as you would any other Google Doc, slide, or sheet. This works best with PDF documents that are clear and mostly text-based. Tables, images, and other interesting things that you may find in a document, such as formatted text, may not come out quite right, as images and tables tend to end up on one page and text on another separate page in Google Docs. This is a great way to differentiate materials for your students if you have access to PDF versions of your current textbook or other provided materials. And I think we can all agree that most of the books out there come with some type of digital version of the ancillary materials. So try this out and let me know what you think. Leave your comments in the show notes about how you are now able to manipulate PDFs and how it works for you using Google Docs inside of Google Drive. And that's my EdTech recommendation. And as we get close to the end of this episode, I cannot leave unless I tell you who the most latest outrageous and highly contagious House of EdTech VIP is. Congratulations to Mr. Chris Aviles, the teched up teacher. Chris Aviles is the EdTech coach for Fairhaven School District in Fairhaven, New Jersey. Prior to that, he taught English at Barnegat High School for 9 years. While at Barnegat, his classroom featured advanced gamification with a year-long alternate reality game, self-paced and self-directed mastery, bring your own device learning, and passion-based and flip learning, as well as blended learning. At Fairhaven, Aviles is flipping and gamifying professional development. He's rolling out some great learning experiences for kids involving makerspaces, coding, Minecraft, and more, as well as telling stories with data to make state testing meaningful to all stakeholders. Mr. Aviles just wants to share his ideas and passion for EdTech with other educators. Chris is also an organizer of the upcoming EdNATO conference coming up at the end of April 2015. For more information, check out ednato.com. And if you go back and listen to the last episode, number 32, you can hear a special announcement from Chris that he submitted about EdNATO. So I suggest you go back and check that out if you haven't done so already. And obviously, because he is a VIP, I 110% recommend that you connect with Chris. You can find him on Twitter. His username is @TechedUpTeacher. That's TECHEDUP teacher, TechedUpTeacher. And you can check out his awesome blog website, which can be found at techedupteacher.com. And there'll be links to both of those in the show notes. And congratulations to you, Chris. You are a House of EdTech VIP. And that's going to do it for a special, again, the day this is released, Easter edition of the House of EdTech podcast. This episode, once again, was sponsored by Today's Meet. Go check out todaysmeet.com/House of EdTech to find out how you can add back-channeling to your classroom today. And keep the conversation going by visiting my website, chrisnessy.com. You can view the show notes for this episode, number 33. And actually, let me throw this in here. If you're listening on a mobile device right now, if you didn't know this, you can tap the artwork. So if you've ever wanted to poke me in the face, now you can do so. So just, tap me in the nose, and depending pretty much on anything you're listening on, you should be exposed to the show notes for this episode right on your mobile device. And the show notes I put in the episode that you've downloaded, they are a little bit more brief, but there is a link if you scroll down that takes you to my website and the full show notes with all of the complete links. because of this, and because I always point you to the show notes, I'm looking for your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode. Leave comments on the show notes, on the blog, on the site. You can email me. The email is feedback@chrisnesi.com, and that's NESI. And you can also submit audio feedback, which, as you heard at the top of the episode with AJ, he sent me something through Voxer. My username is cnesi4602. You can also do it the quote-unquote old-fashioned way and hit me up on the House of EdTech listener feedback line. The number is 732-903-4869. And if you pull this up on your mobile device, you can actually just probably tap the phone number and leave me a message. And obviously you can connect with me on Twitter. The username is Mr. Nessie, MRNESI, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech. So I will definitely see the tweets, and I know that it has something to do with the podcast. Once again, the best thing you can do to help out the show, leave a 5-star rating and positive review in iTunes or on Stitcher. And you can also check out patreon.com/houseofedtech or cash.me/$houseofedtech if you'd like to contribute some money to the cause and help alleviate what I'm doing here. And on the next episode of the House of EdTech, I will be speaking with Miss Angela Watson. She produces a great podcast called Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers, and our conversation was awesome. I am really looking forward to sharing that with you in a couple of weeks, and that episode will debut on April 19th, 2015. I'm looking forward to all of the great guests coming up here in the next 6 to 8 weeks as we get into the end of the school year and then on into the summer. So that's all I have. Thank you for listening, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.